Hi, guys, and welcome to The Truth Hurts with Tony Quinn, where we talk addiction, recovery, and everything in between. And today I am so excited to say that I have Tendani M, who's going to be sharing her experience, strength, and hope. Now, I know how did we meet?
I actually can't remember. I was thinking about this.
I can't pick it up.
I was like, I just remember you chaired for my 3 years.
Yes.
But I can't remember how we met before then.
We just became friends. It happened really organically.
It was so natural.
And our memories are very warped because we can't remember exactly how we met, but we just automatically connected. And T's story is incredible. You're an incredible human being. You do a lot of great work in the mental health space. So I'm just going to say, she's a journalist, she's an author, and you host a writing class for mental health, right?
Yeah, so I do therapeutic writing where I have people come for a workshop and we write anything vulnerable.
That's beautiful. I have to join one of those. We'll discuss it a bit at the end because I really want you to speak about what you do in that space because I think it's so important.
That's my turn.
But basically what we do here is just share our experience, strength, and hope. And I would love for you just to like I always say, the best place to start is at the beginning. Tell us a bit about you and how you grew up.
Okay, so I am an only child. I was born in Parktown in Parkland Clinic, so just down the road. And yeah, my parents got divorced when I was 2, so they were married when I was born.
Yeah.
But I don't remember, obviously, them being together because I was too young. But after that, my childhood was okay. My parents, a big thing in my life is that my parents didn't speak Venda to me, which is my home language.
Yeah.
So when I was about 5, I got put into private school, into a girls' private school. And this is where my identity crisis really started. I said crises because there were a few of them.
Yeah.
But the first one started when I was put into the school. It was very white at the time. It was just after apartheid 98. So I really struggled with making friends. I really struggled with being comfortable in my own skin. I felt really out of place because with white people, I wasn't white enough. And then with black people, I wasn't black enough. So I'd get a lot of flack about how I spoke and how I came across. So it was very confusing for me as a child because I didn't really understand what I did wrong. So I internalized it all as there's something wrong with me because people don't understand me and people keep on sort of criticizing me for who I am. So that was a very difficult period. I think when I was in primary school, I also developed a lot of behavioral problems. So I was very possessive over friends, like any friends that I had. I really struggled with the fact that they had other friends. I would feel replaced if they spent more time with anyone else. And yeah, that was primary school. I moved to a different school in high school. And that was a completely different experience in terms of there were more black people around. It was more diverse. But it was a very highly academic girls' school, also private. And that's where I started drinking. So, yeah, drinking started when I was around 14.
I just want to thank you so much for being so open with that and so vulnerable with that. It's really important to hear these stories. So thank you so much for being here and actually sharing this. I love you and I appreciate you for this. You touched on how in primary school, the behavioral problems came into play and how you would have a very close friend and then the jealousy or the expectation would come in. Would that be considered, I know with borderline personality disorder, the favorite person of aspect? Would it be similar to that? Because I've been through it. I've experienced it where I connect with someone and I feel like everything is about them. Everything is revolved around them. And there's that sense of if they're not with me or if someone else is with them, then I've failed as a person. I haven't been able to be what they wanted me to be.
100%. So I think it was very much around that whole thing of you cannot possibly love 2 people at one time.
Yes.
It's either me or then it's not me. It's either me or not me. So it definitely did come from that. And I don't know if it's anything to do with being an only child as well.
Absolutely.
I was also very paranoid over my parents and my parents dying, which is ironic because my dad died later on in life. But, you know, I know you understand. So, but I would get very, very anxious if they didn't answer their phones and very like paranoid. And I'd have these panic attacks if they weren't available. So started drinking at 14 and that was great because now I could fit in and I could socialize and I wasn't this weird child anymore because I used to think I was very weird.
And all that anxiety that you just
Exactly.
spoke about, like it takes that away. So you think, oh, this is a magic pill,
100%.
a magic liquid that I found.
Yeah. So could speak to people. I became very popular. So amongst the private school community, I was quite well known. I was very friendly, very likable. I think that was a mask that I put on.
Yeah, I get that.
To be liked by everyone and not for people not to have problems with me. And yeah, so that was high school. So I started going out a lot. So I live a little bit of a double life because at school it was a very proper school. So I didn't really give off any rebelliousness or rebellious nature at school. And my academics sort of fell to the wayside. I was very academically strong, but at a school where academics are like the thing, I felt very average. So a lot of self-esteem issues came up where I really felt unremarkable, quite insignificant. Teachers wouldn't really pay attention to me because I wasn't one of the brightest students. So I think that created a very big complex around my intellect.
Okay.
And I really didn't think I was a smart person or intelligent person. You know, I thought I was very, very average. And yeah, so school was just me going out, socializing. That was like the best part of my life was the social aspect. And after that, I went to UCT. I moved to Cape Town. And yeah, I think I had a pretty normal university experience. I felt like I was drinking the same amounts as my peers. Obviously, everyone drinks quite a lot.
Yeah.
So it was easy to be like, I'm normal.
Yeah, everyone gets blacked out drunk. It's fun.
100%. So, so my drinking didn't feel like it was out of control. I wasn't drinking by myself. But I was drinking a lot during the week, obviously, because you'd go to student nights.
Oh, yeah.
That sort of thing. And yeah, in second year, my dad got diagnosed with lymphoma.
I'm sorry.
Which was hard, but he actually was declared in remission in January of 2013. So that was my third year. And then about a week later, he went to hospital and he died about 5 days later after that. So that was a difficult thing to come to terms with because it was very sudden. And
there was hope. And then you get the hope and it's taken away. And then you're in a different environment. You're in UCT.
Exactly.
You're drinking, you're partying, it's normalized. And there's the numbing.
And I think for the first while, for the rest of my third year, because that was February, I definitely just tried my best to just get through my year. I didn't grieve much.
Yeah.
I just used social gatherings to try to escape my pain. And it was 21st season, so it was like, oh yeah, there's a 21st every weekend.
Oh God.
So great excuse to sit at the open bar and get drunk. And then the next year, I was studying a postgrad law degree. That's what I decided to do. I did not finish it.
Still.
Wow. Did not finish it. But I found cocaine, and that was really when issues started in my life around addiction. So I felt quite normal in terms of alcohol before, but as soon as I found the drug that I knew would change everything, from the moment I tried it, I was obsessed, you know?
I found, it's so funny you say that. For me, so alcohol was a very big issue for me as well, and it manifested exactly the same as yours, especially in university because it was so normalized as well. But I would get sloppy, I would get aggressive, I'd get blackout and use it to deal with what was going on and escape the typical stuff. As soon as I picked up a substance that was an upper, it like cured me of being drunk. And then it's like, oh, I found something that's even more magical, you know?
100%.
And I get that so much.
Exactly. And it balances it out.
Yes.
Because you could sober up a bit and you could be a little bit present, more aware.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And did
yeah.
you tell yourself that as well? Because I did. I was like, meth is better than vodka because I am aware of what I'm doing and I remember what I'm doing.
100%. Like, I'm completely sober when I'm using cocaine. But yeah, and the thing is that I had my dad's life insurance paid out, and it was like a recipe for disaster because now I had the money to support my habits.
Wow.
And I pretty much just partied my way through the first 6 months when I was studying law. Then I decided to drop out. And I was still living in Cape Town, and my mom was still paying my rent and all of that. But I said I'd get a job, which I did. I got an internship.
At a law firm?
No, I didn't finish my law degree. So I was...
Internship at a law firm. Where was it?
Imagine. It was at a...
Don't say the name.
Company. No.
Did you also do events company?
Well, it was like one of those companies that list events on websites.
Okay,
so it was very boring.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was also a great excuse. Now, I didn't need to put much effort into it. So I often would come to work late because I was partying. I would lose my voice all the time, literally. And then I'd be like, great excuse to go to the doctor for a doctor's note for laryngitis. So take weeks off at a time. And, you know, I really just thought it was because I was dysfunctional. Like, not because I was an addict, but more like, I'm just not like other people my age. You know? I'm not like other 22, 23-year-olds. It will just take me time to get to that place.
And you can't pinpoint that it's the substances that's also playing a role in this.
100%. Yeah, it's just me. I'm just not developing at the same rate as everyone else. And eventually I went through 3 different jobs in Cape Town for the next year and a half. I would never past probation period. So I'd always present myself very well at the beginning. Like in the interview, I would like pass with flying colors, get the job, and then really like just mess up during my job. And then I came back to Joburg and I studied an honors degree in journalism. And so I was doing my honors year again, the double life, like presenting myself as this really put together person at university, but using on the side. And this is when I really started to use by myself.
Yeah.
And it would like get me through my days. And then I would use alcohol to go to sleep, essentially. And that progressed. I passed my honors, one of the top 5 students by some miracle. But the next year I got an internship at a really popular newsroom and did well, even though I was using, and got a job there. And that's when things started to really just... the wheels fell off completely in that year. I felt like I was functional, and then that year I started to miss work. I was doing the 2 to 10 p.m. shift, and I would come 2 hours late with missed calls from my boss and my mom because my boss called my mom, and I was sleeping, and they're like, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was like, I overslept because I would be dead asleep when I would sleep, and I wouldn't be able to hear a thing. And I was losing weight rapidly. My behavior was so dysfunctional. And eventually they called me in and asked me if I had a problem because I was ordering wine to the office as well.
Girl.
So, like, the security guards were obviously, like, literally every night.
Just call in some wine to the office. My God. Yeah.
Right? And then drinking out of a mug. And I'm a radio reporter, you know, so it was... not great at all. I made a lot of mistakes. And so I went into a clinic first because I was like, I do not need traditional rehab. And they suggested that I go to rehab.
The clinic suggested you go to rehab.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah, because at that clinic, they don't do dual diagnosis.
So you got open with them and said, hey, I'm struggling with substances and okay.
It was very obvious though. Like, obviously they did a drug test and then I slept for like the whole 5 days.
Oh yeah, that's the thing.
So I think it was very clear.
She's on drugs.
She's on drugs. And then after that, I went to rehab and I pretty much masked my way through that rehab. So I presented very well. I could talk the recovery talk. So they were like, wow, she's doing so well. And then I went to our good late friend, after that.
So that's a halfway house.
That's a halfway house.
Yes.
So, yeah, it was also loved me. So that was another manipulation tool. You know, I knew people liked me a lot.
That's the important thing. And I share about it quite a bit is when I also, exact same as you, first time I went into treatment, because we grew up almost learning how to people please and how to make people like us in certain, like you getting all the jobs, like, you know, presenting yourself as the perfect person for the job. It's like we wear these masks, and that is so dangerous for a rehab or treatment environment, because if we know how to work the system,
100%.
we're going to figure out how to do it then.
We will do it, and people will be convinced.
100%. So you go to a halfway house. And
I know loves me, and so
I just want to say, is the owner of this halfway house, a very good friend of ours, and he was an amazing man.
He really was. He really was.
Shout out.
So I relapsed the first time in the house. I went to my school reunion, and my sponsor came to the meeting that was on the Sunday morning, the next morning.
Oh, so you were in the halfway house, went to a reunion, and relapsed at the reunion.
Came back home. No one expected a thing. And then my sponsor was like, why do you seem off? And I was like, then I actually just told her what happened. And then I said, I don't want to tell like it's necessary. And she was like, no, it's 100% necessary. So I told him, and usually his whole thing was that he would expel someone if they relapsed, but he gave me another chance. And then...
So you stayed? You didn't even... So did you not leave? Wow.
Yeah, I stayed. And after that, I went to a wedding in Cape Town.
Oh, girl.
And I used, and I was tested like 2 days later. And then I'd asked, because told me that he needed to see me after my meeting. So I knew that I was going to be tested. So I asked one of my roommates if she could please, when she comes into the bathroom with me, dupe.
Yeah, pee in this.
Yeah, just pee for me quickly.
Which is dangerous to do at a rehab, because you could do that. Next thing you know, they also use it and you've got another drug in your system.
I did not even think of that. Now I have to explain why I have like opiates in my system. But she was like, no, of course, great, good for her recovery. And I was tested, and I had used, and I had convinced everyone around me that I was just an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because I didn't necessarily say I was an alcoholic. It's just that maybe I gave off these vibes, and I did not correct anyone.
So everyone so they tested you for alcohol?
They tested me for drugs, and then I was like, I don't know how that got into my system.
Oh, such a... Yeah.
And I said, I smoked someone's vape. Maybe it was
That's
laced.
always the thing. I smoked a cigarette. It was definitely laced with cat.
I don't know what happened. And then... Yeah, leave me, and he was like, I know you're just an alcoholic. So I got away with that, and but eventually, because of my behavior, I started drinking regularly, and he found wine in a water bottle in my cupboard because my behavior was so erratic.
You did the wine in the water bottle in the cupboard. Yeah. That's like the go-to. No one's going to notice.
No one's going to notice. Let me just leave this here. Let me just put it behind the closed door, because no one's going to open it. And that's when he had to expel me. And I remember he said to me, I can't wait until the penny drops for you. Like, once you get it, it's going to be amazing. And, like, he let me go with such love.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
One addict helping another. Like, you see the struggle, you see the pain.
Exactly.
And you sometimes, you have to put down this, serious boundary that's painful for you and the person you have to put it down for. And to do it with kindness. And, it's like this harsh kindness.
It's like, yes.
Yeah.
I don't want you to die.
Yeah.
But, I really hope you do get it. And I will never forget that, because I was just like, I just don't see this happening for me to ever get recovery. And so that year was just chaotic of me going in and out of halfway houses. And I did another stint in short term. Then I finally got to a halfway house where it was long-term rehab people into this halfway house.
Yeah.
And I remember...
They had done long-term treatment.
Yes.
Okay.
But then my mom didn't tell them that I was literally just inactive addiction.
Okay.
So they tested me once they had admitted me, and
Yeah.
usually they take people with 3 months minimum.
Okay. Sober
of
time.
Sober time.
Yeah.
And I obviously tested positive. So the guy who ran the halfway house, Jody, he also passed away, rest his soul. But he was like, oh my goodness, like we don't ever take people who are in active addiction. And he was like, I really don't see her staying clean without having to do primary. And he wanted me to go do long term. And I was like, you have no faith in me. You know, I'm going to show you. But like clockwork, like he said, I relapsed at a work event. So I was just getting my life together again.
You can see the pattern with you, hey? The social aspect of it is always like this opportunity for relapse.
It is. It's the opportunity. So like, great, I'm going to go to this work event. And I sort of knew they'd test me because they had me on quite like a strict lockdown up till then. But I had to go because it was work. And I walked into the house so drunk. And like they were all sitting in the dining room, and I was like,
God,
good night, and went up the stairs. And then obviously they came to test me, and then the next day my mom came in and they sent me to a long-term treatment center.
Was that terrifying?
I was so scared, but I also was tired.
There we go.
So there was an element of like surrender because I knew I'd just done like a year of not having a proper job and going in and out of treatments. And I sort of knew that there was no other way.
Yeah.
And Jody said to me, all you need is time. Like, you need time away from this life, from Joburg. And I feel like you'll get it once you are just somewhere else for some time. And he was 100% right. So I went to this rehab, and it's very strict, consequence-based. So
I was at a consequence-based one as well.
Were you?
It wasn't to the extent, I know, we're not going to mention names. I know the extent, but it was harsh.
Yeah.
In a good way, mine.
Yes. Like for you, it was great. Yes, 100%. So I also needed it, you know, and it wasn't, and it's interesting because when I'm sober, I'm very much a person who wants to abide by the rules, and I'm a perfectionist. So it wasn't because I wasn't the person who was always getting consequences because I was breaking the rules.
Yes.
It was my behaviors that got me consequences. So like rescuing, I got a week of consequences for rescuing.
Can you explain what rescuing means?
So rescuing is when you save someone from consequences. So we used to get striked, which, you know, they would just give us some sort of consequence if we left things lying around. And I had taken someone's torch that they had left lying around and saved her from that consequence.
Okay. So it's like protecting each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then again, I got another week of consequences for... I was a monitor for the smoking section. So at this rehab, I had to go and literally smoke everyone. So they would smoke while I was around. They couldn't smoke, but when I was
so you
around.
were monitoring the smoke. Oh, okay.
Yes.
So can you explain, you said something, what does a consequence week look like?
So a consequence week was either doing farm dishes at night.
Okay, we went to completely different rehabs. Our consequences were like you don't get tuck shop for the...
No, tuck shop was also part of it.
Dude, that was...
So, and then during nap, there was always a bit of nap time during the day. You'd have to work in the garden or do something during that time. So, and then disciplinary consequences were a lot harsher where you didn't have phone calls.
Yeah.
And all of that.
Yeah.
So I never got onto disciplinary, but I did have my consequences. And yeah, so that week of consequences was because it's a funny story. One of the girls went to pee in the bushes because she didn't want to make a train. We had to go in threes.
To the bathroom.
So like... she didn't want to make a train and have to convince people to go. So she peed in the bushes and I didn't say anything, but it was like, I didn't really feel like I needed to. And because I kept it a secret, they gave me a week of consequences.
Okay.
So then that was another lesson for me, you know, my people pleasing, taking charge, because everyone saw me as a leader, but I didn't really at that time. Like everyone was like, you do have these leadership qualities, and we want to get you to a place where you're not people pleasing, and where you are like stepping into the power that you have.
It's also hard when you go to rehab and you like we're inclined as addicts to never snitch.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So it's like, no, dude,
And
I'm not going to tell anyone. Why would I? They're not going to tell me. It's hard.
And it's not like something that you do purposefully.
Yes,
it's more like this is just the way it is.
Yeah.
So essentially that grew me so much. I became more happy with who I was as a person, and I took off that mask that I had, which was always being nice. I identified strongly as a journalist and an activist, and that sort of also became lessened, where that wasn't what gave me value anymore, because that was very much where I got my value from, was being that person. And I volunteered for another year, which was very challenging. It was COVID time.
At the rehab.
At the same rehab.
Okay, so you did your time and then ended up working or volunteering.
Volunteering
is the word.
Yeah. So that was another element of learning boundaries. I used to do town trips where I'd go buy everything for the farm. So now also humbling myself, because I had 2 degrees and now I was going like shopping, you know, for my job. And I would look after the people who were quarantined. So lots of all the new people, you know, their behaviors are hectic. So I learned strong boundaries there. And then I decided to stay on another year and become a staff member, where I counsel teenagers, which was so fulfilling and rewarding.
That's incredible.
But yeah, I loved it so much. And they taught me so much as well. Those kids, loved them to bits. And after that, I decided to leave.
That's when I remember, because that's when we started connecting. Yes. Okay. Sorry. Yes. Just like my brain. So you were there, yeah.
And then I moved to Cape Town because I got a job. I actually wanted to come back to Joburg, but I got a job in Cape Town, so I moved there. And everything was fine for the first 3 months.
And this was outside of a rehab facility, this job?
No, I was working as a normal person at an NPO, and I was alone in Cape Town, and I was very adamant on staying sober. But what happened after 3 months is that I think I got very complacent. I had a very big, ego around being a counselor and the fact that I knew a lot about recovery. Mm-hmm. And that was never challenged in that rehab space. You know, because you're in such an isolated space, you're almost seen like a guard who knows everything.
There's that danger with that, 100%.
Yes.
Like the Captain Recovery
100%
kind of thing. I know everything. You guys need to look up for me. There's a power dynamic.
And there's a hierarchy.
Exactly.
And I had to work my way up to this hierarchy. I was where you were, and now I'm here. And we're not going to meetings or anything, so we can't get...
Oh, that's what I was going to ask. Was that rehab? What were the tools that they taught? So was it a 12-step rehab?
So it was 12-step, but faith-based.
Okay, so faith-based facility.
Faith-based facility. And we didn't go to any NA meetings or have any AA or any fellowship meetings.
And therapy, sorry, I'm just asking. Yes. And therapeutically?
Therapeutically, we did have counseling.
Okay.
But it wasn't the main thing. The main thing was your day-to-day.
Okay,
so
I get
you. And having a routine, and we would have groups twice a week, but very, very strong on the faith.
Okay.
So that was the biggest element. So I left, and after 3 months I relapsed, and it was so interesting because it wasn't planned. It wasn't like I had been scheming up this relapse for days and days. I had received news about an ex of mine who had broken up with me just before I went to Healing Wings. That he had a child with this woman that I sort of was suspicious of during our relationship.
Oh, yeah, that's tough.
And I had spent all my time in rehab beating myself up because he broke up with me because of my addiction. So I found out this news and I didn't know how to deal with it. And then I think along with the complacency and all of the things that were happening beforehand, I picked up because my housemate was away for the weekend. It was a long weekend. I had no plans. Plans are a big element of my recovery that keep me clean, because knowing that I have to be somewhere.
Yeah, it's important. Routine is important.
Routine really helps me. So I just decided to Uber Eats some wine.
Can you do that? See, Uber didn't exist when I was inactive. You can just Uber Eats some wine. Okay.
Yeah.
That removes all the accountability of going out and doing the process. So it just comes straight to you. Well, I suppose it's like drugs.
It is like drugs.
Yeah.
And then I found my dealer's number from Cape Town days.
Oh, yeah.
Which was a miracle. It's been 8 years since I'd lived there.
But you will always find a number if you want it. That's the thing.
I found it because I was like, let me go into my chats on Facebook with all my friends I used with. And obviously we asked for numbers there. And so that was when my relapse began. And it was very difficult. I had 3.5 years clean beforehand. And I actually was very honest from the beginning. I told the people in my life that this had happened.
How soon after?
2 days, 3 days
So
after.
you are very, see, that's really important to get that honest that quickly. It's
For
hard.
sure. It's very hard. It was one of the most difficult things I've ever had to do, but I didn't want to be using. Like, I had convinced myself that I could stop,
Oh yeah.
but I couldn't. And even though I had told people, I still couldn't until I took myself into a clinic. I booked myself into a clinic 2 weeks later. But then as soon as I had some clean time again, my counselor ego came up. So I was like, I'm in rehab with these people who are people I would have counseled. And
I don't belong here. I know more.
I know more.
Yeah.
You can't teach me anything about recovery that I don't know already. So shortly after that, I relapsed, I think probably maybe 2 days later. So maybe I wasn't even clean or in recovery. But essentially, my life also was falling apart because my roommate had kicked me out because of the relapse. And I just felt there was no security for me in Cape Town. Like, I didn't have family there. I felt very alone. So that was a very
Dangerous.
difficult environment for me to be in. And that's sort of perpetrated or like perpetuated right here. I perpetuated the cycle. And I went into another clinic about 2 months later. And I moved in with friends from the rehab I'd been in, just temporarily, but I was using, and then they eventually kicked me out. And
I just want everyone to think, like, this is the thing. It's all these consequences. It's like consistent consequence
100%.
and consistent using. It's like that's the cycle of addiction. It's just so hard to stop, even when you tell yourself you can.
Exactly.
And no matter the consequence, we keep going till the next one, till the next one, till the next one.
And as soon as they kicked me out, it was like, okay, I'm going to book myself into an Airbnb and just use myself. Like, no one can actually say anything to me now. But my mom came and flew to Cape Town the day later. And bless her soul, she drove me up to Joburg in my car. And then the next year was me trying to stay clean, but really struggling. The next maybe, let's say 9 months.
Yeah.
Until it came to a point where I was hospitalized because I was dehydrated.
Was this...
This was the time you came to visit me. Tony came to visit me.
Can I talk about this a little bit?
Sure.
It was like, I love it when people are honest in a recovery space, or when they're trying, because people try, you know, and not everyone gets it right the first time or the second time, you know. And you were so honest about what you were struggling with at that point. And you let me know what had happened, and I went to go visit you in the hospital. And it's so tough when you've watched someone like do really well and then, you know, slip up and keep coming back and keep trying. So when I went to go visit you in the hospital, I didn't know what to bring you. It was like such an awkward thing. What do you bring someone at the hospital? Like, so I got you like a little lucky packet. And I walked in and I didn't know what to expect. And the pain I saw in you that day, it was exhaustion. It was, the dehydration was evident. Like, what I did not know what you had been through. I had no idea what had happened. I just knew that you had relapsed. It was so... it was so sad to see someone you love so much in that much pain, but it was also so beautiful to see you discuss it, get open about it, immediately tell people and ask for help. Like, I cannot explain to you how beautiful it was to see you saying, I need fucking get help. And I applaud that. Like when you are an addict and if you relapse and you ever feel like the community is going to like discard you and be like, fuck you, look, there might be some people that do that. Let's be so for real. But there's a massive community of people that will stand with you when you're going through that. And I saw that with you. Like, they were just people coming to see you. It was amazing.
And I think for me, having you there and you being so non-judgmental and just so loving was a huge thing for me. And unfortunately, the environment I come from, the rehab environment, they are very shunning towards people who relapse. So that was my experience, was that I would be shunned. And these people that I loved dearly are no longer my friends. Yes, I did play a big part because I hurt them and my behavior affected them. But also, instead of feeling like I was supported in my journey to now be clean again. I felt like I was discarded, and it felt like whatever I meant to them no longer
Like you
mattered.
weren't the hierarchy. It was
I
like, oh,
wasn't-
you start again.
Exactly.
You have
like,
to prove not
No.
even, we're done. You don't need to
we're
prove
done.
anything.
Yeah. And it's really difficult because I love them so deeply, and to not have a relationship with most of them now is a
sorry,
hard
T.
one. Yeah. So, I mean, I will make my amends, but I feel like I have lost a big element of who I was, especially at the beginning of my recovery initially. But yeah, having you show me that that isn't the norm was very important for me, and it really inspired me to do this thing. And I booked myself into a halfway house, and I've been there for 8 months now. And yay!
Sorry, it's just so exciting to know. Yeah.
And yeah, it's been very interesting this time around. I feel like I've come into recovery with a humility that I didn't have the first time around, you know. When I go to meetings, I listen no matter who's speaking. I listen to what my sponsor says, no matter what she says. And I don't have this complex about knowing better because of my background.
Yes.
I'm very open to hearing anything about recovery from anyone. And I actually it's very interesting because being a counselor was very much part of my identity. And I hardly talk about it with people, especially like people I live with. It's not something that comes up immediately. I do some consultancy work as a counselor at a clinic. So like, obviously people do find out that way when I go to work, but it's not like, oh, I'm a counselor and I
No
know
more, yeah.
this, you know? And I think that's very important for me because that was a huge part of why I had this ego and this arrogance.
That's the thing with the recovery is when we identify the behaviors that keep us sick. Mm-hmm. And it's not about like beating yourself up over having this behavior. It's about understanding it and actively trying to change it.
Exactly.
But like when you speak of, so the last 8 months, I've seen you just thrive, just absolutely thrive. Like it's incredible to see from seeing you in that hospital to where you are now is unbelievable. And it really is like a one day at a time thing. What are the tools that you think you are actively engaging with right now within these 8 months that have made things a little bit different to the last times, you know?
That's a really good question.
I mean, if you don't know, just tell me to be like, bitch, I'm just, no, it's good.
Yeah, obviously I have tools. Otherwise I wouldn't be here. But I think reaching out is a huge one. Whereas I really struggle with reaching out. It's one of those things that evades me, completely evades me. But I've really tried to get out of my comfort zone and reach out when I need it, and to try to be as honest as possible with people. And I think obviously my higher power plays a huge role in that, having faith in something that's bigger than me, because when I'm in control, it's the shit show. So I need to believe that someone or something else is in control, so that I don't feel overwhelmed by decision making, and
I get that. Yeah.
I don't feel like it's really up to me. Like there's a path that's set out for me already, and as long as I do what's required of me by staying clean and doing a program, I will live that path.
So what program do you follow?
So I do mostly in NA, Narcotics Anonymous, and I'm doing the steps again. I'm presenting my step 4 to my sponsor tomorrow.
Step 4 is the toughest one, bro. Are you is it the, oh, good luck.
Gosh.
I would tell, step 4 is when you kind of reveal your deepest, darkest secrets and the things that are actually quite nice about you towards the end.
Exactly.
It's just quite nice.
The assets part was actually so difficult, but
it's hard, hey? Step 4 is so hard, and saying it out loud to another person.
Exactly.
That's another thing, is that I find that sense of community and connection in those moments, like just saying it and kind of just getting it out and just sitting with it with another human
100%.
being. Dude.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. So I will give you feedback about that. But yeah, I think working the steps again has been incredible. I didn't believe I had to work the steps again
Oh,
when
yeah,
I had
yeah, yeah, yeah.
my 3.5 years because I was cured. So I think
And nothing else happened in those 3.5 years that you needed to look at.
exactly. My behavior was perfect. I was a perfect human being. And I just see the value of working the steps over and over again because even like from when I started my step 4 to now, there have been things that have come up for me that I could put in my step 4, you know? So
Yeah.
I think it's an ever changing process and an ever like a process that we have to go on forever.
Like the 12-step thing. So for people who don't know, like I say, there's all different kinds of recovery that are available. There's all different kinds of connection and communities available. So you and I found that in the 12 steps. And even like people are like, how come you still do step work when you've got like 12 years clean? Why are you constantly still writing about drugs and step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4? I'm like, dude, I'm not.
Yeah.
If I'm acting on a bad behavior or some part of me is still sick, I can still use the steps to
Exactly.
work through that. So it's like never-ending self-work.
Exactly.
I feel.
And that's why they say that the substance is the solution, not the problem.
Exactly.
Because we are the problem. I am the problem in that there's so many things and behaviors that I picked up that I constantly have to work on because they will come. It's like my natural state to be someone with bad behavior, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But it can be arrested, you know, just to quote some fellowship stuff, but I don't have to live with these thoughts and my thinking patterns, which are actually the most dangerous for me. My thinking is so warped that I constantly have to work on having thinking that is rational.
You share a lot about that beautifully on social media and through your writing. Like the way you share about how you get worried that if someone looks at you and doesn't respond in a way, and I'm the exact same, when someone says hello to me, but it might not be as joyful as I expected, I feel like they hate me.
100%.
Like they hate me. They want me dead. They want me dead. Like I saw you post something about that. And how is that kind of, you also spoke about it from how you grew up and the way you felt that rejection. How is that now in these 8 months? Is it something you're thinking?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I think it's improved quite a lot. So it's not perfect. So there's
course, yeah.
It's not perfect. There's someone in my life who I got close to very quickly. And I originally liked them. Lol, if they're watching this, but I originally liked them.
I'm sorry. It's not you. If you think it's about you, why do you think everything's about you?
Yeah, I have other people in my life. Goodness gracious. And then we became really good friends very fast because he's also in recovery. And he has 5 years. Yeah, tell you about it later. And so we get along based on that. Like
Yes.
that's where a lot of our friendship, what it's built on, is our recoveries.
Been there.
And like we talk every day, and we went to through about 2 weeks where he'd call me often, and like we have this really beautiful friendship now. And he's been working for like the last 3 days, and I wasn't hearing from him, and I was like, what did I do? Like, what did I do? Where did I go wrong?
It's
like,
yeah.
That's my immediate thoughts. But now I can actually think about it rationally and say that is actually ridiculous. Like, okay, there are so many other reasons why someone might not be available for you all the time now. And it's because he's been working, and I can actually have the rationality to be like, oh, okay, it's actually not me. And if it is me, then this person is not meant to be in my life.
Yeah, and it's fine if it is you.
Exactly.
Like it's like, okay, if someone doesn't like me or doesn't want me in their life, learning to be okay with the fact that not everyone is going to like us is
100%.
the hardest fucking thing in the world.
So hard.
But also, it's going to happen, you know?
Exactly.
And we need to... I don't know, it's about how we respond to that. And because you mentioned how you've got your sponsor, so that's someone who you speak to and tell them what you're going through. You've got your sponsor you can speak to. You're currently in a halfway house environment where you can verbalize this kind of stuff to people. When we work through that and we get through that and realize we can do that without substance and without, obviously we're going to be hurt. People get hurt, we have to deal with pain, but we can get through it, and the world's 100%. Not going to end.
Yeah, and the more we do it, the more we have evidence that it's possible.
There we go.
And I think that is so beautiful. It's like, oh, cool, I got through this thing without picking up. So the next time it happens, I can probably get through it as well. And, the beautiful thing about not being liked these days is that I know it's because I'm being authentic. Whereas I was so liked by everyone when I was in high school. And it's because I was inauthentic, and now I'm like, great, there are people in my house that I don't get along with. And I know that it's because of certain things and the way I portray myself sometimes. And I'm not the nicest person, whereas that was my mask that I wore. Like, I'm so nice and I'm so lovely, but I'm not always nice. And I love that about me, is that I have boundaries now.
Yes.
And I can be a little bit of a bitch, for lack of a better term, to people. And it's okay, because I'm not meant to be liked by everyone. And I'm being real. And I love that.
I love that. That is such a good way to look at it. My whole thing was, I'm going to pretend to be someone I'm not for everyone.
Exactly.
Just so they like me. And my personality would change in every single room I was in just to fit in. You know that.
Yeah.
Like, it was
the chameleon.
Oh yeah. And I never got to know myself. And the most beautiful thing about recovery is that process you described of getting to know yourself. And not everything is a flaw.
Exactly.
If I don't like something someone else likes, it doesn't mean I'm flawed. It means
100%.
This is just something I don't like.
Exactly.
And we don't have to connect.
Yeah.
It's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah.
And we could still be civil, and we could still be around each other. It doesn't have to be like, I hate you now because we're different.
Yeah, we're enemies for life. Done. Nemesis. I'm in a movie.
Yeah, my rival.
Yeah, my rival. I had that in high school. That was my thing. This person's my rival.
And I know.
Dude, probably. And it was like I was running on spite.
Oh my goodness.
Like I was running on spite. And that's such an ugly place to be.
It really is. It really is. But it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful learning about myself as well. And like realizing that I respond to certain ways to things and certain ways to things. And that's okay. Like, it's okay.
Yeah.
Everything's okay.
Everything's okay. Oh, I love that. And then seriously, thank you for sharing that story. Like, I think it's important to hear the struggle with the relapse, with honesty, with different kinds of programs you find yourself in, different kinds of communities. Before we wrap everything up, what advice would you give to someone who is currently struggling with addiction and doesn't feel like it's possible to find a way out? Like, just advice or any last words you would have to say to them.
Sure. Yeah, I think I know that place of being so hopeless that the only way out feels like either you go on to the bitter ends, and that sometimes for people looks like death. And I just want to say that it really doesn't have to be that way. There are so many people who want you around despite you feeling like no one wants you around and you're a burden. And all it takes is reaching out to one person who you trust, one person who feels like they are a safe space for you. And that's where we start. And by their response, hopefully you'll see that it's okay to reach out to others and maybe to go to a meeting if that's your thing, where there are like-minded people. But there are so many resources that we can use. And it might not feel like it at this moment in time, but there is a way out. And I hope you see that you're worthy and you're worthy of recovery. You're worthy of a life of joy. It can happen even though it doesn't feel like it. Like, I look back at my time of being so depressed, and I know my social media, because I write about it, it will always remind me, and I'll be like, wow, it's crazy because I actually cannot relate to this person right now, but I can put myself in her shoes.
Yes.
Because I remember what it felt like to be that hopeless and that despairing. So, yeah.
And that's beautiful. I want you to know that you're worthy as well. And we're all worthy. That's the thing. And you're right. It can feel so lonely and isolating. Especially addiction. At the end, you're using by yourself,
Exactly.
and they're shadow people. Those are the only people you're hanging around with. But, and then it does feel like there's no one to reach out to. And sometimes we don't get a nice response from people. But it's so nice to know there's other communities available where people like you exist. Just someone like you that exists in a space that makes me feel safe. There are people out there that care. And we find them, We
do.
We find them. They find us.
Or they find us.
Or they find us, dude. And just thank you so much for your time. It has been an honor. I have watched you just thrive. I've watched you get honest. I've watched you share. I've watched you do service. That's helping other addicts. I've seen what's happened over the last 8 months, and it is magnificent. One addict helping another is without parallel, and I've seen you help people. I've seen you help people a lot with your writing courses, going to meetings, sharing. You're an amazing human being, and I just can't wait to see what is in store for you and what you are going to do with what you know. You're an incredible human being. Tell everyone where they can find you before I wrap up.
Thanks, my turn. Oh, I feel, firstly, I just must say that I'm so honored and privileged to be here and to be your friend. Is such an honor that I cherish with my whole heart. I boast about it to people all the time because she's my friend, guys. She's amazing. But you can find me on social media. So my Instagram handle is Tenz, Tenz, Mulaudzi, Mulaudzi. And give me a follow there. That's where I'm most prominent. I do not know how to use TikTok like Tony here.
I'll teach you.
She needs to teach me. But I also have a newsletter, a sober newsletter. It's called No Thanks, I'm Sober.substack.com. So you can check me out there and some of my writing.
Her writing is exceptional. You have no idea what you are about to see. Speaks to my soul every single time. Thank you for your honesty.
Of course, my turn.
Thank you for your wisdom, and genuinely thank you for being here. Just here in general, not just in this world. I love you.
I love you so much.
Thank you for your vulnerability. And guys, before we wrap up, let's have a little cheers with our coffees.
Yay.
I got a Friezacino from Bunnaqurs.
It's her standard.
It's my standard.
Her thing. Okay.
Yes. So
Yay.
cheers, everybody. And remember, we do recover. Love you. Cut that.